Okay, let's wait for Christina.
Okay, you are live, Mayor.
Okay, let's call to order the Policy Committee meeting for October 4th. It's 4 o'clock. Where is Christina? There, she's down at the bottom. Are you going to read all those pretty little COVID words for us again?
I will, Mayor Hudson.
Okay.
The procedures adopted for this meeting meet or exceed the standards set forth in Assembly Bill 361, which allows public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. At this time, I will conduct roll call and would ask the chair to recognize me after to confirm certain matters for the record. Vice Chair Armstrong.
Present.
Mayor Dave Hudson will be serving as alternate.
Here, recognize the executive assistant.
Thank you. Based on the response to roll call, the record should reflect that all committee members can hear the proceedings clearly. If there is no objection, the record will also reflect that each committee member believes, based on voice or facial recognition or otherwise, that the persons representing themselves to be council members, in fact, council members.
We are.
Good.
Seeing no objection, I will turn the meeting back over to Mayor Hudson with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call.
Okay, public comment is open. Public comment at special meetings is limited to the item described in the notice. If any of our 7 attendees wishes to comment on new business, item 3.1, they need to raise their hand now. I want to let Sean Carpenter know that I do have your letter. Did you want to speak instead of the letter? We'll ask you when we get to it. I'm kind of delaying to make sure that there's just 2 people that want to speak. Okay, call in user 1. You're up first. If we can get her in. This is about the draft Affordable Housing Trust Fund policy.
So the rule is a little bit confusing. At the last meeting, the public was allowed to speak either or. So please be consistent. Otherwise, the public really doesn't know how to prepare for a public comment, as I was not able to speak at all at the last meeting for the special council meeting that just took place. So regarding this, I just want the council to know that there are a lot of developers who are filing bankruptcy left and right, specifically in Fremont and San Jose. If we have a fund that is going to go towards assisting the developers, I strongly urge you to please advise the staff to look into the financial background and history of these developers who are applying, so that we don't end up awarding bad developers who come here to build for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I will address your comment under number 4 when we get to it. The next one is Sean Carpenter from Standard Communities. And we did receive a letter on this.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I just wanted to verbally state, as I did at the Housing Advisory Group on Friday, just some of the components of this policy that obviously we support as an affordable housing developer, both nationally and in California. We are predominantly low-income housing tax credit developers. And as a result, a number of the provisions that are in the housing policy that we noticed as a potential stakeholder for some of these application rounds, we wanted to address that. And so we did just offer some comments. I thought that the policy was very well done, and congratulate Debbie for some hard work getting this over the finish line. Specifically, when it comes to our letter, I had 4 areas of concern that will essentially support by making these changes a little bit more ambiguous to allow for a case-by-case basis. it allows for low-income housing tax credit transactions that are being allocated from SIDLAC or the Tax Credit Allocation Committee, the ability to get these deals done. So Section A, just wanted to note that the interest rate that has a set rate of at least 3%, typically on low-income housing tax credit transactions. This is a leverage. The cities have to leverage funds, and as a result, those interest rates generally on these deals would have to be at or below 1%. And then over a longer term period. I made a small comment on loan origination fees that typically are addressed to a specific due diligence item or a third party report, legal, et cetera. On the process, any deals that have any types of federal funds or state funds need to have the funds have to be committed at the financial closing, the initial financial closing, or the funds can't be contemplated as part of the transaction. So in the policy now, it states that the council would approve the funds and then maybe in 3 years take another look at them and then decide to go longer term or not. That language probably just needs to be tightened up a little bit to account for low-income housing tax credit transactions. And then the last one simply is as all of these applications are public and all in the project that was of interest to San Ramon and to Standard Communities is Aspen Woods. That application is public. That was sent into SIDLAC, and we expect that any application to the city of San Ramon through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund would be public. And we just respectfully ask that financial statements remain confidential and under staff review. I know that that's a provision that is of importance, and although we submit them, it's pretty standard to have that not be a public item. So I want to thank you for your time, Mr. Mayor, city councilors, and the city manager and the staff.
Okay, thank you, Sean. And we do have the letter. I've written it. Let me move on. And public comment is closed on this, but obviously it's still going to be the same item. We're on to new business. And that is 3.1, the draft Affordable Housing Trust Fund policy. I understand, Debbie, that'll make it easy. You'll be able to address these also if you want to. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mayor Hudson and Vice Chair Armstrong. Today I'm here to present the draft Affordable Housing Trust Fund policy for your consideration. Program 14 of the housing element requires the city to establish a program for use of housing in lieu fees, including timelines, milestones, and identification of housing sites, which all exist within our general plan currently. The draft policy is intended to provide guidance for the use of the Affordable Housing in lieu fee and the commercial linkage fee in order to ensure the timely construction of affordable housing units. Until recently, the San Ramon Housing Fund has been used to implement programs in support of affordable housing, along with staff time to implement programs. The fund has an available cash balance of about $4.3 million and a projected fiscal year-end balance of about $4.5 million, which acknowledges the sale of the Park Central property that the council authorized the purchase and sale of last March. With the Freya Neighborhood 5 development under construction, staff anticipates the fund balance to grow by an additional $9 million by February of 2025. And future projects that are in the pipeline will contribute to the fund growth and approximately $1.35 million over the next 5 years. Two recent actions have necessitated the need to adopt a policy. One is the aforementioned purchase of the Park Central townhome by the Council of May of this year. And the second was on May 5th, the Finance Committee authorized the city manager to provide a letter in support for the use of $4.5 million from the Housing Fund in support of an application for tax-exempt bonds for the California Municipal Finance Agency to allow the automatic allocation of low-income tax credits for the Aspenwood project. While the Aspenwood project was not successful in securing funding in round 2, it appears they're positioned well to receive tax-exempt bonds in round 3. The policy in and of itself is drafted to be flexible to respond to a variety of opportunities to fund potential projects. Assuming funds may be limited in the future, the policy addresses construction of units and preservation of at-risk units to ensure the efficient use of funds. At this time, rental assistance is not an eligible use of funds. In addition to identifying the eligible use of funds, the policy establishes loan terms and application process and a maximum subsidy per unit. The Housing Advisory Committee met on October 1 and moved the policy to the Policy Committee with the following comments. And so for your ease of use, on packet page 5, under loan requirements, the first bullet, term of loan should be set by the council. Staff would also offer, they want to modify, as Sean had mentioned, the 3-year limit and ask the council set the term for each loan that would come before them. Another option for the committee to consider would be to set a term limit for up to 15 years and then add or at the discretion of the city council. So it automatically would be up to 15 years, or the council could go longer if they felt the need to. On package page 6, under loan requirements, we need to delete the first full bullet, which speaks to loan term again, because it's duplicative of the first bullet I mentioned previously. PAC also discussed encouraging the use of funds for nonprofit and make nonprofit builders aware of the policy. On packet page 4, B, eligible borrows, funds are available for nonprofit use. And we can also promote the policy to nonprofit builders as well in our education materials. And finally, encourage diversity in project implementation. I believe as part of the low income tax credit, this is something that the applicant has to demonstrate in order to qualify for those funds. So with that, my recommendation is provide direction to staff and the city council regarding the draft affordable housing trust fund policy, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Mark, you want to start it off or you want me to jump in?
I think just some simple questions, I guess. And part of this is seeing some of this for the first time. There was a reference to 55 years, which I just didn't understand. Is thrown in. I've seen it a couple times.
Well, that's
and is that a standard industry standard term for these types of arrangements?
I think it's statewide affordable housing, isn't it, Debbie? That you're talking about?
In order for the project has to be affordable for 55 years to qualify for the low income numbers.
Okay. And then, I just had another comment on section 3B there with respect to the developer experience and capacity. And it talked about 3 successful projects being sufficient. But I guess the question is there should we have some kind of credit worthiness check or something like that for either the developer or the joint venture? Or is that just assumed that they're worthy borrowers?
Maybe looking to section D under financial statements, we could add some language there about credit worthiness.
Well, I'm maybe it's more of a rhetorical question, but yeah, I think it would be good to just make sure if we're going to loan out money, we're not a financial institution, but if we're going to loan out money to somebody, we want to make sure that we're loaning money out to people that we have a high expectation of being able to meet their obligations.
Yes, and I think through the reviewing of their projects and then also probably the financial statements, we probably will get there. And if there are questions, we also we have that catch-all phrase and any other additional information we deem appropriate.
Okay.
If that works for you, we can just leave the policy as is, or we can add some more language. It's up to the committee to decide.
All right. Well, I'm okay if that's what's implied within that other section there with the financials. I think in general with the policy, as I read it, especially with respect to the project at near term here, the Aspen Woods project, I think we all want to proceed without delay on this project and get it moving along. So I think the policy is appropriate. I think we need something to at least provide some kind of some guardrails on what we do here. So I think a policy is a good idea. And it allows us to have some kind of discretion for what we approve or what we don't approve in the future. So I'm good with this. I do think that the Sean Carpenter's comments were worth considering. I read I didn't have time to really digest it all. I saw the written comment coming late. I heard what he said here, but I think he had made some good points that we ought to consider and not necessarily go with, but I'd like to, when it comes back to council, I'd like to at least to know that the staff has considered those requests for potential adjustment to the policy.
I would just add that I do like that. I don't know how you're going to do it because we're a public entity, but the financial confidentiality I run into so much, and I believe that you really are dealing with somebody, and it's between the two of you, and they don't go out and make their financial, the letter that we were looking at, that Councilmember Armstrong was just discussing about how they're qualified to get the loan. That should be confidential. I don't agree with the standard communities about the minimum rate, though I think if I were doing a real estate deal, I'd try to get it down to 1% too. But you're never going to get rid of that 1% for at least 3 years if you do it. I'm not looking to go into the lending business. I'm trying to help facilitate, move stuff along, more like a bridge loan to get into the actual financing you're going to need to do. I do like the idea of a minimum of 3%, because frankly, it's going to go right back into the market and do it again. And somewhere in here, and I can't find it again, you have the ability to waive certain things or to change. I think I'm going to ask you to help me out on it, Debbie. I thought it was early on that if you have discretion, a portion of the loan may be forgiven. So I think it's covered in that respect. But up front, when you do these things, you set it up clean, and you get thrown a curve, you deal with it. I was thinking that if you're doing this loan in that particular case for whatever $1 million it is, it's more or less, and that's what I was reading into the per units, that when it's complete, there would be a refinancing on it, or am I wrong on that? That's the direction I'd like to see things go, but I don't want to kill a project when the market goes bad. So I think what your policy sets up verbiage wise is the way I would like to see it go, and give the center manager as much latitude as possible if a project's in jeopardy. It doesn't do any good to get halfway through a project. I mean, they're just terrible. But if you set up a policy where all the money goes to the first person, then when the next one wants to come in, or the next one, then you're going to have difficulties, and you're going to be back here trying to get it redone again. I knew if I talk long enough, Martin would put his hand up. Martin?
I've never actually used this function before. It's actually kind of cool.
It's not on. Oh, it is there. Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to weigh in a little bit on the confidentiality aspect of this. There is some mixed case law about confidentiality of financial statements. And fairly recently, a court ordered a local agency to release financial statements if they were used in order to make a decision in a public setting. So we can't promise that the city will provide a lockbox for this information. But what we can do is commit to letting the applicants know that if we get a request for this type of information, that we will contact them and let them know that we are going to make a determination as to whether or not we believe that the information is legally disclosable, i.e. that we have to turn it over to the requester. At that point, we would give them an opportunity to indemnify the city and then challenge the request either in court or otherwise, so that they don't have to disclose. But we would leave that up to the applicant.
I actually think that might be the bigger question when we get to that, because every time we do that, it's like, well, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I actually think that what you have is about as good as you could do it. The questions that were asked by standard, I don't want to go below 3% on this thing. I mean, I don't have a problem if you waived a fee that made up for it down the road if you saw that things were going in the right way. And I see your hand go up, Jeff, and I don't care. We've closed the public hearing on it. But when we get to the city council meeting, if they want to speak more to it, or if you want to talk directly with Debbie, fine. But as far as the policy, just as a policy as a minimum, I think that's a good idea. The other thing is, and I'm not sure where to go with it, is the loan origination fee. And I go back to the same thing, that if you do the loan origination fee, that you have, the city manager has the right to waive it when you're weighing all the things that are going on to make the project go. Then I'm just worried about that financial thing. And I just would ask that somebody's emailing me down the road. Debbie, you guys discuss this with Aspen Wood of what their concerns are. Because it may be that you don't get anything in writing for the qualifications or whatever, but that might be difficult too. So I will just tell Jeff that we've closed the public hearing portion of it. So, and I guarantee you the other guy that just put his hand up, we've closed the public hearing. But for me, the real issue here is, do we accept this policy? And I believe the policy is cooked. And I think the statement that council member, let me shut this door. That council member Armstrong made the comment that when it gets to the full council, there may be some comments or questions on it, but I think your policy's set right now. Debbie, you have the floor.
Yes, I'd like to offer maybe two suggestions that may help address Mayor Hudson's concerns regarding the interest rate. We could, maintain the language, a minimum rate of 3%, or at the discretion of the city council. So the council could offer a lower interest rate, depending on what type of project and what type of loan package the developer is looking for. So maybe a little more flexibility at that.
Yeah.
The committee there. And then the loan origination fee, what we're really trying to do here is recoup our costs for preparing the loan document. So that's really kind of what that is. So maybe we can work on some language to balance that also.
Okay.
We can send that to the council. That may take a little bit more time.
Yeah. And at that time, then I see that the two applicants can actually speak during the public comment of the item, because I can see where it's confusing, but I will address what caller in user 1 was addressing when we get to item 4. And this is just a suggestion, our recommendation to staff to put forward to the council, correct? I mean, I'm seeing a lot of nods. You okay with this, Mark, or you have a last word on it?
I just want to comment on what Debbie just said. If we're having a policy, should be broad enough that we shouldn't have to go to the council every time there's, a request for, say, less than 3%. I mean, if it's, or it's not to exceed 3%, I think was the language, or a minimum of 3%.
Minimum 3.
So, we have a policy so that we don't have to go to the council every time there's an exception. And so I would like to see language that would help cover that if at all possible. Or why have the policy in the first place if it's always going to be coming to the council?
Yeah, I think it's when we come to the council with a loan proposal, the council has to authorize and appropriate the funds. So the council would be weighing in on the entire package, which would potentially include the interest rate.
I see. Okay. Well, I see how it could be wrapped up into the whole.
Yeah, it'd be wrapped up in the whole package. So finance committee would look at the loan proposal with an interest rate, and then that would be recommended to the full council for consideration and a reduction in the rate at the same time, because these amounts will probably be in excess of what the city manager would be able to authorize and agree to on his own.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the last thing I say is, again, I think the timeliness of this is the Aspen Wood project. And, so whatever we can do to move that along, great. I think this policy will help with that, and it'll help for future proposals, whatever we can do to encourage the development of the kind of the low and the very low affordable housing. I think that's great. I think this policy helps to do that.
I think you're spot on. I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for here, other than you've got the information we've given you, Debbie. You're going to bring it to the council, or you need any kind of formal, we don't have resolutions or anything on it. You're good to take this to council?
I am, thank you. Yes, it'll be October 12th at the city council.
Okay, then we will close item 3 and go to item 4. This is a policy committee comments. I want to make one because it was stated earlier that we need to be clear about this. I will read what we have in item 2, public comment. Public comment at special meetings is limited to the item described in the notice. Gives the code section, comments should not exceed 3 minutes. That's why we open it up to the public to speak about 3.1. So I'm on item 4. Do you want to do a policy committee meeting? We have a hand for number 4 that wants to speak. Let's let Mr. Woods in, who wants to comment on policy committee comments. Is he in? Mr. Woods.
I must have hit the wrong button again. Sorry about that, Debbie.
Okay, no problem.
All right, sorry about
Okay. Are we kicking him out? Good. Okay. No, I didn't mean it that way, Jeff. Councilmember Armstrong, do you have any further comments?
No further comments.
Okay, then we are adjourned to the next policy committee when at the call of the chair. And so when Sridhar says you need a policy committee because city manager says we need a policy committee, you'll have one. Have a good evening. Thanks for all coming in and have a good